Have you ever stopped to think about what is really hidden in the Vatican secret archives? What if I told you that there is a prohibited document capable of destroying everything you believe about the history of the Catholic Church? A manuscript so powerful, so dangerous, that for centuries it was kept under maximum surveillance, locked in the Vatican Secret Library, away from the eyes of humanity. The Vatican denies it to this day. But if this discovery is true, the entire basis of the Christian faith could simply crumble. What does the Vatican hide? Why so many books banned by the Church never came to light? What exists in hidden catacombs and in the secret documents of the Catholic Church that can change the history of the world? This is not just another conspiracy theory. We are talking about censored sacred texts, hidden apocryphal gospels, lost prophecies that never reached the public, secrets so dark that not even the most faithful followers would dare imagine. And most, frighteningly, there are indications that the Vatican itself destroyed evidence, burned manuscripts, and silenced voices that dared to reveal the truth. The big question is, because hide all this? What is it about these documents that could shake the faith of millions? Is what has been taught for centuries just part of a huge, carefully constructed hoax? There are reports of researchers who mysteriously disappeared while trying to unravel these mysteries. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize that the dark side of the Catholic Church goes far beyond what history books show. Holy books removed from the Bible, hidden prophecies about the end times, hidden holy relics, and secrets of the Vatican Library that should never be discovered. What if I told you that now, for the first time, fragments of that secret have begun to leak? Yes, what was previously inaccessible is coming to light, and the revelations are simply shocking. Before everything disappears again, you need to know what's going on behind the Vatican walls. But get ready, because what you see next could change everything you believe. But before revealing what was found and the darkest secrets hidden by the Vatican, I want to make you a very special invitation. In the midst of so many mysteries, so many doubts and revelations that can shake anyone's faith, it is essential that we remain firm spiritually. Therefore, if you believe in the power of prayer, if you also feel that there is something hidden and that the truth needs to come to light, I want to ask you now, leave your prayer request here in the comments. Yes, write your name, your city, or what you want us to pray together. Here, on this channel, we are not just revealing the Vatican secrets or talking about books banned by the Church. We are forming a community of people who seek the truth and who also believe in the power of prayer. I will read each comment, each name, and together we will elevate our thoughts, asking for protection, wisdom, and strength to face these revelations. After all, dealing with these discoveries is not easy. When you begin to understand what was really hidden in Vatican Secret Library, when you realize that secret manuscripts they were censored because they brought spiritual truths that were too powerful for humanity, it is natural to feel fear, indignation, and even a certain emptiness. Therefore, at this moment, I am counting on you to strengthen this chain. Leave your like now, because this helps this video reach more people who, like you, deserve to know what is happening behind the Vatican walls. Subscribe to the channel too, activate the bell, because what I'm going to reveal next is too strong, and you won't want to miss the next chapter of this investigation. After all, the truth always finds a way to surface, and together, we will unearth the most hidden secrets of the Catholic Church. You banned books as hidden prophecies, and no one will be able to stop us. So, comment below with your prayer request, and get ready, because what comes now will shake everything you know about faith and the history of humanity. And the most impressive thing of all is that this mystery did not remain buried forever, because recently, new investigations and leaks have rekindled this controversy that for centuries the Vatican tried to silence. Reports have emerged of a prohibited document, one old book, hidden in the depths of Vatican Secret Library, which has been carefully removed from the official history of the Catholic Church. A manuscript considered so dangerous that its mere existence could collapse pillars of Christian faith, shake dogmas, and put the Church in the face of an unprecedented scandal. This mysterious document, according to independent scholars and researchers, brings revelations about the apocryphal Gospels and hidden texts who were censored by the Church itself. Texts that would show a completely different side of the story of Jesus, Christ, Mary Magdalene, and even the apostles. And it doesn't stop there. Some parts of this manuscript speak of never-revealed prophecies, hidden messages that deal with the end of times, the true identity of sacred figures, and even connections that the Church has always denied, such as the possible relationship between Christian teachings and ancient civilizations, or even extraterrestrials. What is most striking is that the contents of this book were kept completely confidential for centuries, and now fragments began to leak out. Documents that previously only existed in rumors or conspiracy theories are beginning to emerge in independent investigations, historical analyses, and even leaks from forgotten archives. And many have always suspected this, haven't they? There has always been that feeling that the Vatican holds something much bigger than people can imagine. The question has always been in the air. What is really hidden in the Church's secret archives? Why were so many books removed from the Bible? Why have some passages simply disappeared over the centuries? Now, with these new discoveries coming to light, it is increasingly clear that there was a real concern on the part of the Church to keep certain knowledge hidden. After all, if this manuscript really is what the researchers claim, it brings truths so impactful that they could completely change the course of the history of the Christian faith and of all humanity. Just imagine, if everything we learn about Christianity is just a controlled version, shaped to maintain centralized power. If the deepest truths about spirituality and the origin of humanity are locked right there, in the catacombs of the Vatican, in the pages of a book that the world has never been able to read? Scholars say that some of this material reveals a face of the Church that the public never imagined. Forbidden rituals, revelations about the true role of women in the Bible, secret prophecies about the apocalypse, and even records about the Church's involvement with occult powers. And the most frightening thing, there are reports that some of this information directly involves the creation of false truths, narratives constructed to maintain spiritual and social control of the population for generations. And you know what's even more intriguing? Many of these documents have been cited by ancient priests, monks, and even cardinals throughout history. However, whenever someone tried to bring these records to light, they mysteriously disappeared or were excommunicated. Coincidence? Or further proof that the Vatican has always been willing to do whatever was necessary to keep these truths buried? With each new discovery, with each excerpt recovered from these writings, the world comes closer to the answer to a question that has echoed for centuries. What is the Vatican hiding from all of us? And look, you who are here with me now need to understand, we are not talking about something small. This goes far beyond conspiracy theories or stories invented to gain visibility. These forbidden documents exist, and the fact that they are starting to appear only reinforces how close this truth has always been, just waiting for the right moment to be revealed. In fact, some international universities and research centers have already begun to investigate the case. Renowned researchers, with access to historical documents and even former church employees, began to speak out. And everything indicates that we are facing one of the biggest revelations in history. There are fragments that talk about the real role of Mary Magdalene, not as a simple follower of Jesus, but as someone much more important, perhaps even a central piece in a story that has been completely rewritten. There are texts that speak openly about the fallen angels, their direct involvement with humanity, and how all of this was silenced so that the official version of the Christian faith remained intact. Many believe that the emergence of this new information is no coincidence. We are living in a time when the truth is beginning to come to light, no matter how much we try to suppress it. Social networks, the internet, all of this is helping to expose what has always been under lock and key. And you who are here listening to me are part of this. You are seeing, firsthand, what has been hidden for centuries. Now I really need to know what you think about all this. I want you to help me spread this truth. Have you ever suspected that the Vatican was hiding secret documents? I already imagined that there were banned books and hidden prophecies. Tell me here in the comments, and more. If you made it this far, I want you to comment on the sentence, "The Vatican has always known the truth." Write this now in the comments, so I know that you are with me in this investigation. Let's raise this discussion, because the more people comment, the more this video will reach those who need to know this hidden truth. And what makes this story even more disturbing is the name of this lost manuscript that has begun to emerge in recent investigations. Called by some scholars the Forbidden Gospel of Mary Magdalene, this text is considered by many to be the most dangerous document ever censored by the Catholic Church. A hidden gospel, suppressed by the first leaders of the Church, precisely because it brought revelations that could destroy the entire narrative built about Christianity over the centuries. A book that not only retells the story of Jesus, but puts Mary Magdalene in a central role, totally different from what was taught in the official scriptures. The most impressive thing is that this forbidden gospel was first mentioned in historical records in the 3rd century, but soon fell into complete oblivion, disappearing from any official church citation. They say that some fragments were found during excavations in Egypt, more precisely in the region of Nag Hammadi, where several others, apocryphal gospels, came to light. Among these texts, this manuscript by Mary Magdalene has always stood out for bringing a completely different vision of the trajectory of Jesus Christ and the first Christians. And as expected, the Vatican vehemently denied the existence of this gospel for centuries, classifying any reference to it as heresy and persecuting those who dared to question the official version of the Christian faith. What is most shocking is that reports indicate that excerpts of this text would have been kept hidden, preserved within the Vatican Secret Library, one of the most inaccessible and mysterious places in the world. Few are allowed to enter there, and those who do never reveal what they saw or found. But now, with the advancement of digitalization technologies and the courage of some former church employees, fragments have begun to leak and rekindle the flame of this ancient mystery. In this forbidden gospel, Mary Magdalene is not portrayed as the simple follower or repentant sinner, as the Church has always painted. In fact, it appears as Jesus' closest disciple, the one who understood the most profound teachings, who received revelations that not even the other apostles had access to. And more, some excerpts suggest that she would have been chosen by Jesus to continue his spiritual mission, something that, if confirmed, would completely change the role of women in the history of Christianity and overturn centuries of oppression and silence. And what really gives me goosebumps is that this gospel suggests the existence of secret teachings that were passed only to Mary Magdalene, hidden knowledge of such a high spiritual level that they could free humanity from dogmas and reveal shocking truths about the universe, creation, and even the destiny of the human soul after death. A type of wisdom that the Church could never allow to become public, because it would call into question the control it has exercised for centuries over millions of believers around the world. The supposed moment of discovery of this forbidden gospel could not have been more intriguing. The first rumors about its existence appeared at the end of the 19th century, when archaeologists, excavating the Egyptian desert, found funerary urns containing fragments of ancient papyrus. At first, the texts were considered just one among many other apocryphal gospels. But, upon deepening the analysis, scholars realized that it was something much grander, something that directly touched the core of Christian doctrine. And since then, this discovery has become one of the greatest taboos in the history of the Church. The Vatican, of course, moved quickly to stifle any mention of this discovery. Historians were silenced, manuscripts mysteriously disappeared, and the official narrative was reinforced in churches, seminaries, and theological colleges. But as everything that is hidden sooner or later comes to light, the rumors never completely stopped. Over the years, independent scholars continued to search for traces of this forbidden gospel, and what they found was enough to raise even more suspicions that the Church actually possesses secret documents that will never be shown to the public. The most recent of these leaks reportedly occurred a few years ago, when a group of European researchers gained access to a digitized file from the Vatican Secret Library. Among thousands of ancient documents, they claim to have found clear references to this forbidden gospel of Mary Magdalene. Not the complete text, but records that would confirm that the Church has known about the existence of this gospel for centuries and has deliberately kept it hidden. The details are chilling, and what these records suggest is that this forbidden text carries deep spiritual knowledge, revelations about the real role of Jesus, and a completely different view of the divine mission and the true meaning of the crucifixion. Can you imagine the impact this would have if it were made public? What would the faith of millions of people who have always believed in the official version imposed by the Church be like? And why would the Church hide something like this? What true fear does the Vatican have of these words, of these revelations that could free humanity from the chains of fear and guilt? And it is exactly from this point that the revelations begin to become even more disturbing and difficult to ignore, because according to the fragments analyzed and the researchers involved in these investigations, this forbidden gospel of Mary Magdalene not only brings a new version of the story, but suggests something even more shocking. What if Jesus hadn't died on the cross as he was always taught? What if the crucifixion had not been the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a secret kept under lock and key by the Catholic Church? This hypothesis, however absurd it may seem to many, gains strength when reading passages that point to Jesus' survival after the crucifixion. According to these sources, what was officially told was only part of the truth, carefully manipulated. The crucifixion would have happened, yes, but the outcome would have been completely different. There is evidence that Jesus was taken off the cross while still alive, helped by a select group of loyal followers, and among them, none other than Mary Magdalene. She was not just an ordinary disciple, but the centerpiece of a much larger mission, someone who received true spiritual knowledge directly from Jesus and who was at his side until the last moment. What these texts suggest is that Mary Magdalene knew the truth and that its image has been completely distorted over the centuries to hide its real importance. Instead of a repentant prostitute, as the Church has always reinforced, she would be the direct heir of Christ's secret teachings, the guardian of a wisdom so powerful that it could free humanity from religious manipulation. And that is precisely why his figure was erased, silenced and transformed into a symbol of sin. Because recognizing the true role of Mary Magdalene would mean admitting that the basis of the Christian narrative has always been incomplete, or worse, that it was deliberately manipulated. And this is not the only point raised by scholars of these occult texts. There is yet one revelation that may simply destroy blind trust in the scriptures that have come down to us, the real possibility that the Church rewrote parts of the Bible. That's right, some of the original Gospels would have been altered, removed, or even completely destroyed because they carried messages that were of no interest to the dominant religious power. Texts that spoke about the human side of Jesus, about his weaknesses, his fears, and mainly about the fact that he could have lived long beyond the crucifixion. Entire passages that mentioned the role of women, the power of spirituality without intermediaries, and the direct connection between human beings and the divine were simply deleted or modified to strengthen the Church's authority over people's faith. Can you imagine the impact of this if it were revealed to the world? What if everything we learned as children, all the stories preached at Mass and taught in Sunday school, were just a version carefully put together to keep track? What if the most important parts of Jesus' true message had been hidden for fear that people would discover that they didn't need priests, bishops, or the Vatican itself to connect with God? What these researchers discovered is that there are records that clearly indicate that during the Council of Nicaea, several texts were handpicked to compose what we know today as the Bible, while others were completely discarded and labeled as heresy. And do you know what catches your attention the most? Many of these excluded texts spoke precisely about Jesus' intimate relationship with Mary Magdalene, about the possibility of him having formed a family, about teachings that placed women as equal to men in wisdom and spiritual power. And this is where the conspiracy starts to make even more sense, because by erasing the central role of Mary Magdalene, the Church guaranteed that power would always be in the hands of men, religious leaders, keeping women in a role of submission and sin. And the deeper you delve into it, the more you realize that this manipulation was not a simple historical error, but a meticulously thought-out strategy to control entire generations. The most disturbing thing is that there are also indications that other secret documents, not yet revealed to the public, provide details about Jesus' supposed escape plan. Some scholars claim that he was taken to a safe region after the failed crucifixion, where he lived the rest of his days alongside Mary Magdalene and his closest followers, teaching in secret, away from the eyes of Rome and the nascent Church itself. And if this is true, it changes absolutely everything we know about the origins of the Christian faith. It means that the resurrection may have been more symbolic than real, and that Jesus' true legacy was hidden because it showed a man of flesh and blood who survived, loved, and left descendants. Can you imagine the impact all of this would have if it were officially revealed? What would the great religious institutions, the spiritual leaders who have always relied on this narrative to maintain control, be like? The faith of millions of people around the world would be shaken, and the Vatican would certainly do everything to prevent these truths from coming to light. And I know this all seems hard to believe, it even sounds like a movie script, but more and more documents, records, and testimonies reinforce this theory. And the most curious thing is that, even without knowing all this, many people always felt that there was something wrong, something that was not covered in the stories told in churches. There was always that feeling that the Vatican hid secrets deep, that there was much more behind the walls of that walled city than we had ever been allowed to see. Now more than ever, it is time to raise this discussion, to question what has always been imposed as absolute truth. And I really want to know what you think about all of this. So, if you've made it this far, comment now. The story has never been completely told. Write this sentence here in the comments because I want to know who is really with me on this journey of searching for the truth. I want to see this phrase spread because each comment helps this video reach more people, more curious minds, who also deserve to know these revelations. And don't forget to leave your like now, because this helps the channel a lot and shows YouTube that this content needs to be delivered to more people. And of course, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because what comes in the next part will be even more surprising. There is much more to be revealed about these banned books, these hidden prophecies and the secrets of the Vatican Secret Library. And I guarantee you won't want to miss what comes next. And the more you dig into this story, the more evidence emerges pointing to what could be one of the biggest cover-ups in human history. Researchers and historians from different parts of the world have been trying for decades to access confidential documents kept under maximum surveillance by the Vatican. But they always face insurmountable barriers, and those who dared delve too deeply into these mysteries often ended up discredited, silenced, or in some cases even disappeared without explanation. But now, new fragments of these prohibited manuscripts began to leak, revealing information that could change everything we know about Christianity. One of the scholars who dedicated himself most to this investigation was the renowned researcher Dr. Robert Eisenman, one of the leading experts on the Dead Sea Scrolls. In several of his publications, he suggests that there are lost gospels and prohibited texts, which present a different version of the events described in the New Testament. According to him, many of these writings were considered dangerous because they directly contradicted the narrative established by the Church. Eisenman, like other researchers, believes that texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, they were suppressed because they showed a more mystical, freer Christianity, without the need for an institution that would mediate the relationship between man and God. Another researcher who made impressive discoveries was John Allegro, one of the first scholars to have access to the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1950s. Allegro stated that these texts hid advanced spiritual knowledge, and that some of them made mention of spiritual initiation practices prohibited by the Church. His statements were so controversial that he was ridiculed and removed from academia. But to this day, his research continues to be a reference for those seeking to understand the true history behind sacred texts. And then the question arises, if there is nothing to hide, why do these documents remain inaccessible to the public? The Vatican controls one of the largest secret libraries in the world, a place where manuscripts are supposedly stored that could reveal unknown details about the early years of Christianity. Researchers have been trying for decades to gain access to this collection, but only very few, carefully selected people are able to enter. And even then, only with special authorization from the Pope. Many claim that books that contest the official doctrine of the Church were hidden, and that documents that could change our understanding of history will never be released to the public. And when we talk about leaked excerpts, there is one that has made a big impact in recent years. In 2010, a supposed fragment of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene began to circulate among scholars. The text, written in ancient Greek, described a conversation between Mary Magdalene and the apostles after Jesus' resurrection. The most shocking thing is that, according to this fragment, Mary Magdalene would have been chosen by Jesus as the spiritual leader of the group, but the male disciples would have rejected this idea. This detail, if proven, reinforces the theory that the Church deliberately erased the role of women within Christianity to maintain an exclusively male power structure. Another important study was conducted by Professor Karen King from Harvard University. In 2012, she presented a papyrus known as The Gospel of Jesus' Wife, a short fragment written in Coptic that mentions Jesus referring to "my wife." This reignited controversy over the possibility that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a much closer relationship than we have been taught. Of course, the Church quickly discredited the document, claiming it could be fake, but Harvard itself defended its authenticity, and to this day, the debate over this manuscript continues. And if we analyze the archaeological side, we find even more intriguing clues. In 2007, Israeli archaeologists announced the discovery of what could be the Jesus family tomb, located in Talpiot, a neighborhood in Jerusalem. Inside this tomb, ossuaries were found with inscriptions mentioning the names of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, as well as a name that could be Mary Magdalene. This discovery has been widely contested by religious leaders, but scientists and historians continue to examine the possibility that this is actually Jesus' family tomb, something that would call into question the entire idea of physical resurrection and would reinforce the theory that he survived the crucifixion. And speaking of crucifixion, there is another lost document that raises even deeper questions: the Gospel of Barnabas. This text, which was kept outside the biblical canon, presents a completely different narrative of Jesus' death. According to the Gospel of Barnabas, it was not Jesus who was crucified, but Judas Iscariot, who would have been confused with Christ and taken to the cross in his place. If this version were true, it would radically change the basis of Christianity as we know it. Another fact that cannot be ignored is the existence of ancient records that mention secret scrolls kept in the Vatican, which would contain details about the hidden teachings of Jesus and the relationship between the Church and ancient civilizations. Some researchers suggest that part of these documents could even indicate contacts between religious leaders and extraterrestrial knowledge. Yes, you heard right. There are records in ancient texts that mention celestial beings who brought divine knowledge to humanity, and there are those who believe that the Vatican has information about this that has never been released. Now, if all this really is true, the question remains: how long will the Church be able to keep this secret? With the digital age and the ease of sharing information, more and more fragments are leaking. More researchers are looking into these mysteries, and the truth begins to come together. With each new study, with each new manuscript discovered, we realize that the history of Christianity may have been completely different from what we have been taught. And the most disturbing thing of all, when we start to delve deeper into these discoveries, is realizing the absolute silence of the Catholic Church in the face of all this evidence, this new information, and these discoveries that are slowly emerging. Because if there was nothing to fear, if everything was nothing more than invention or baseless conspiracy theories, the Church itself would come forward to clarify, open its archives, put an end to this wave of questions that grows every day. But no, what we see is the opposite: a deafening silence, a systematic refusal to talk about the subject, as if talking about these prohibited manuscripts, those secret documents from the Vatican Library, was an unacceptable affront. The Vatican remains silent, hidden behind its walls, as if ignoring it was enough to bury the truth once again. How many times have you seen an authority in the Church speak out openly about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, about the Gospel of Thomas, about the Nag Hammadi texts, or even about the Dead Sea Scrolls? They speak in vain, try to discredit researchers, blame translation and interpretation, but they never, absolutely never, admit the existence of these documents or allow the public to have direct access to them. And what is most impressive is realizing how, over the centuries, whenever this information threatened to come to light, the Church's response was the same: deny, deny, and deny, while behind the scenes, they did everything they could to erase any trace of these revelations. Prohibited books were burned, researchers persecuted, hushed discoveries, all done subtly, but at the same time ruthlessly, and that's no exaggeration. There are historical reports that, during the Inquisition, hundreds of manuscripts considered heretical were destroyed and burned in public squares, all under the command of the Church itself. And this raises a question that cannot be ignored. If these texts, if these discoveries were in fact irrelevant or false, why all this effort to hide, silence, and even destroy? Why doesn't the Church simply expose these documents, refute the researchers with concrete evidence, and put this matter to rest once and for all? The answer is simple: because there is much more behind these texts than they want to admit. The most recent case that exposed this behavior of the Church was the Gospel of the Wife of Jesus, presented by the teacher Karen King from Harvard. As soon as the fragment came to light, the Vatican's first reaction was to classify it as fraud. No investigation, no serious analysis, just outright denial. Instead of discussing the merit of the text, instead of trying to understand whether there was something to be studied there, the order was clear. Hush up the matter, discredit those who brought the issue to light, and move on as if nothing had happened. And this happened several times. When studies on the tomb of Talpiot in Jerusalem, the possibility that the bones of Jesus and his family were there caused a real earthquake among scholars and religious people. But the Church's reaction? The same as always. Silence. No official investigation. No solid pronouncements. Just the old argument that it was nothing more than speculation. But behind this contempt, what was hidden was the fear that humanity would discover that the resurrection, the maximum pillar of the Christian faith, could have been rewritten, changed, manipulated, and the most serious, internal documents leaked by former Vatican employees reveal that there is a list of prohibited topics within the Church, subjects that should never be mentioned by priests, theologians, or anyone linked to the institution. Among them are exactly the apocryphal Gospels, banned books, the secret rituals, and all documentation linked to the Vatican Secret Library. Absolute control of the narrative, ensuring that only what matters reaches the faithful. This stance of denial even extends outside the Church. When independent scholars or universities attempt to further research the forbidden Gospels or the manuscripts censored by the Church, come up against an invisible barrier, a veiled but powerful resistance that prevents the advancement of studies. Many end up having their research boycotted, their funding cut, and in some cases, their careers destroyed. And all this doesn't happen by chance. The Vatican knows that if this information becomes public knowledge, all the power the Church has built over the centuries will crumble. Because if people find out that the Bible was edited, which the most revealing texts have been removed, which Mary Magdalene played a central role in Jesus' mission, and that the crucifixion may not have been as they told it, the structure of religious control loses its meaning. Have you ever noticed how the Church always positions itself as the only holder of the truth? They have created over time an image of unquestionable authority, where questioning is almost a sin. And that's exactly why this strategy of silence works so well. Because it frames doubt as something wrong, as something dangerous. But the danger, in fact, lies precisely in what was hidden. The danger is in words never revealed, us secret manuscripts, in the prophecies that never reached the public. And that's why it's so important that we keep talking about this, keep questioning, investigating, looking for answers that have been denied for so long. Because the silence of the Church is not proof of innocence, quite the opposite. Silence is the biggest sign that there is something gigantic hidden. And the more we dig, the more we realize that this story is much bigger than it seems. Now, I really want to know your opinion on all of this, because your comment here is what keeps this investigation alive. It is what shows that you also believe that the truth needs to be revealed. So tell me, do you believe that the Church's silence is a way of hiding the truth? Do you believe there is something so powerful in these forbidden documents that the Church would rather destroy than let the world know? Leave your opinion here in the comments, and, if you got this far, write the sentence, "The silence of the Church hides the truth." I want to see this phrase in the comments, because the more it appears, the more this video will reach people who, like you and me, know that what is hidden needs to be revealed. If this is true, everything you believe about the faith and history of the Church could be wrong. How would you feel when you realize that a lifetime of beliefs, of repeated dogmas, of indisputable truths that you were taught since you were a child, may be nothing more than a great construction carefully planned to keep you obedient, submissive, accepting a narrative that, in reality, hides dark secrets and information that they never wanted you to know? I know, it's hard to even imagine, but that's exactly what starts to make sense when we connect all these dots and realize that the Vatican has always hidden much more than it revealed. Because the deeper we delve, the more it becomes clear that there is an immense effort, absolute control, not only of faith, but of the history of humanity itself. And all of this was centered precisely on that institution that, for centuries, was seen as the guardian of the Word of God. But has this Word really reached us in the way it should? Or will it banned books, hidden gospels, secret manuscripts and prophecies never revealed were carefully locked away in the depths of the Vatican Secret Library, where no one can have access? The scariest thing is to realize that this manipulation may have started way back in the first councils of the Church, when ordinary men decided what would be considered sacred and what should be erased from history. It was there that texts like Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and so many others were discarded, prohibited, condemned to destruction. And everything that didn't fit into the narrative that the Church wanted to build was simply eliminated. How many texts were lost? How many truths were silenced? How many stories that could change our view of the Christian faith would never reach us? Have you ever thought that maybe everything we know about Jesus Christ could it have been rewritten? That his true teachings were suppressed, hidden, distorted, and that, instead of a spiritual master who spoke of freedom, of direct connection with the divine, of equality between men and women, they constructed the image of a God-man used as a tool of power and control over the people? When you start to see it from this angle, you realize that this manipulation was not something small. It was a gigantic operation, planned and executed over centuries, with the sole objective of centralizing the power of faith in the hands of a few. And the saddest thing is realizing how much this strategy worked. Because to this day, millions of people follow this doctrine without ever stopping to ask themselves if what they learned is really the truth. They accept what was taught without questioning. They repeat dogmas without even imagining that many things were created by interests that have nothing to do with God or spirituality. And then, when these discoveries emerge, these leaked manuscripts, these historical theories based on scientific and archaeological studies, the Church's first reaction is silence or absolute denial. They never directly deny it with proof. They just say it's false, that it's not worth wasting time on, that it's the stuff of heretics or conspiracy theorists. But the truth is, the more you investigate, the more you realize that these lost fragments carry information too powerful to ignore. Archaeological relics, partially burned manuscripts, records of priests and monks who tried to tell what they saw and were forever silenced. It is as if, every century, the Church needs to reinforce this invisible wall so that no one sees what has really been hidden. And when we talk about faith, spirituality, the impact of it all becomes even more brutal. Because we are not talking about simple historical information, but about a faith built on a fragile foundation, full of gaps, lies, and omissions. How would you feel to find out that the story of the crucifixion may have been manipulated, that there is real evidence in ancient manuscripts that Jesus survived the crucifixion and lived out the rest of his days alongside Mary Magdalene, that they could have raised a family, leaving descendants, and that this part of the story was deliberately erased because it destroyed the dogma of physical resurrection, the central dogma of the Christian faith? What if I told you that there are hidden records in the Vatican who speak openly about Mary Magdalene's role as a spiritual leader, as a direct heir to the teachings of Christ? Texts that show that she was not only at Jesus' side at all times, but that she was responsible for continuing his true mission after his departure? This would place women on a level of power and knowledge that the Church would never accept. That's why she was erased, turned into a sinner, a prostitute, and her true legacy was buried under centuries of lies. And if you think all this is impossible, just look at history. How many times has the Church been caught lying, hiding crimes, hushing up scandals? And what makes you think it would be any different when it comes to the foundation of the Christian faith? They know that if this truth comes out, everything will fall apart. Therefore, they prefer silence. They prefer to let people remain trapped in ignorance, while they maintain complete control over what you believe or don't believe. And what scares me most is thinking that maybe they still exist within the Vatican Secret Library manuscripts that reveal even more than that. Hidden prophecies, ancient texts describing forbidden knowledge, secrets about the true origin of humanity. Because if they were able to hide something as big as Mary Magdalene's true role, what else did they hide? What else is under lock and key? Because it would reveal that the Church has built an empire on a carefully engineered lie. And that is exactly why we need to continue questioning, investigating, seeking the truth that has been denied to humanity. Because if all of this is really real, if these forbidden manuscripts tell the story as it really happened, then everything they taught us about faith, about salvation, about spirituality, needs to be revised. And I really want to know what you think about all of this. So now, comment below if you already suspected that the real story was hidden from us. And if you got this far, write the sentence, "What the Church hides needs to be revealed." I want to see this phrase spread in the comments, because together we will continue this search for the truth. And what makes all of this even more unsettling is knowing that, even today, there are independent researchers, historians, and experts who continue trying, at all costs, to gain access to these secret documents that the Vatican has been hiding for centuries. People who dedicate their entire lives to the search for truth, facing the power and influence of the largest religious institution on the planet. And the scariest thing is realizing how much the Church resists, how much it closes down, remains silent, and even moves behind the scenes to prevent any of these records from coming to light. They know what is hidden, they know the impact it would cause, and that is why they created a real invisible wall around these secret files. There are reports of scholars who spent decades seeking authorization to enter Vatican Secret Library, this place shrouded in mystery, guardian of the greatest secrets in the history of humanity. And when I talk about secrets, it's no exaggeration. Manuscripts dating back millennia are kept there, texts that could rewrite not only the history of Christianity, but of Western civilization itself. Documents that talk about books banned by the Church, apocryphal gospels, hidden prophecies, and even records of knowledge that modern science cannot even explain. And what researchers most denounce is that the Vatican does not allow any access. Even the most renowned scholars, linked to the largest universities in the world, face an insurmountable barrier. There is always a justification: the fragility of the documents, the complexity of the translations, the need to preserve the collection. But the truth is different. They just don't want the world to know what's there. Because when the truth finally comes out, the world will understand that history was written by interested hands, manipulated, distorted, and shaped to keep power in the hands of a few. The most intriguing thing is that, in recent years, increasingly strong theories about what new truths are about to be revealed. Some researchers claim that recent leaks coming from within the Vatican itself indicate that part of these documents have already been digitized and are being analyzed by restricted groups. Groups that, little by little, are realizing the bomb they are about to drop on the world. Information that was hidden for centuries, but now, with the advancement of technology and the emergence of the internet, is beginning to slip through the Church's fingers. And there are many who believe that the Vatican knows it won't be able to keep this secret much longer. There are rumors that part of these documents openly talks about the true origin of humanity, about spiritual connections that were hidden, about rituals and ancestral knowledge that were prohibited and destroyed because they gave human beings a spiritual power that the Church did not want them to have. There are those who say that there are hidden prophecies, texts that talk about the destiny of the Church, about the end of times, and even about the emergence of a new Messiah. And all of this is there, hidden, because it would call into question every dogma, every commandment, every absolute truth imposed over the centuries. Can you imagine the impact of all this? Discover that the apocryphal Gospels, those texts considered heretical, bring revelations that the Bible never mentioned, such as the fact that Jesus survived the crucifixion, that he formed a family with Mary Magdalene, and that his descendants perhaps still walk among us. Discovering that the resurrection may have been symbolic, a construction made to maintain belief in the miracle, when, in fact, everything was designed to strengthen the power of the Church. And what makes me most uneasy is knowing that, while we are here talking about this, there are people inside the Vatican itself, who know each of these truths. People who have already read these manuscripts, who know exactly what was hidden from humanity, and who, even so, continue to reinforce silence, control, denial. But until when? How long will they be able to keep all this locked in the shadows, away from the eyes of humanity? The feeling that remains is that we are about to experience one of the greatest revelations in history. The pieces of this puzzle begin to fit together, and each new discovery, each new leak, brings us even closer to the truth. Researchers such as Robert Eisenman, Karen King, John Allegro, and many others, they have already made it clear that the whole is much deeper than it appears. They talk about hidden texts, about gospels that show a completely different face of Christianity, about manuscripts that prove that the history we know was written to serve the interests of power and not to save souls. And when you start to think about it, it all makes sense, because Jesus' true message spoke of freedom, of love, of direct connection with the divine. He never talked about intermediaries, about the need for a temple or a priest to be close to God. And perhaps that is exactly what they fear most, that the world will discover that no one needs the Church to connect with the Creator, that the power has always been within each of us, and that everything else was an invention to maintain control. And now, given everything you've heard so far, tell me, how can you not wonder what else could have been hidden from us all these centuries? How many truths were buried along with these forbidden manuscripts? How many secrets were locked away in the depths of the earth? Vatican Secret Library, far from the eyes of humanity, guarded by those who decided what we should or shouldn't know about our own history, about faith, about the true meaning of spirituality. It is frightening to think that the power to decide what the truth would be has always been in the hands of an institution that, from the beginning, was more interested in maintaining control than, in fact, transmitting the message of Jesus Christ. At this point, we can no longer pretend that this is all a coincidence or a simple conspiracy theory. They are renowned researchers. They are archaeological studies, and even leaked historical records that point in the same direction. There is a part of human history that has been carefully erased, and everything indicates that it is directly linked to the apocryphal Gospels, to the hidden prophecies, to the books banned by the Church, and to a whole range of documents that, if they came to light, would completely change the way we see Christianity. And it's not just the story of Jesus that's at stake. We are talking about a whole web of manipulation that involves the past, the present, and even our future. Because if they really exist occult prophecies hidden in the Vatican, if the Church knows something that has never been revealed, what else could they be hiding from humanity? What other truths were silenced? What knowledge was prohibited? What spiritual or even scientific connections were lost because someone back there decided that we weren't ready to know? And when I stop to think about it, the only certainty I have is that their time is running out. Because today, unlike centuries ago, information escapes, it leaks, it spreads, it connects. And no matter how much they try to silence, stifle, manipulate, the truth always finds a way to surface. And if there's one thing that motivates me to continue bringing these revelations here, it's knowing that there are many people like you, who are listening to me now, who also feel deep down that there is something much bigger behind all of this. Something that goes beyond what we were taught in churches, in schools, in history books. Something that finally needs to be revealed. And that is exactly why I invite you now. Do you believe the Church really hid this? Comment below. I want to know what you think. I want to see your opinion here. Because every comment, every word from you strengthens our community and shows that we are not alone in this search for the truth. And in the next video, I will reveal to you the most dangerous book ever censored by the Vatican, a manuscript that was not only banned, but simply disappeared from official records, as if it had never existed. But the truth is that he existed, and the content of this book is so disturbing that the Church itself considered that humanity could never have access to these words. And we're not talking about just any text, we're talking about a hidden prophecy, hidden in the depths of Vatican Secret Library, a revelation that, if it comes to light, could shake the entire world and call into question the very survival of the Church. This mysterious book, according to scholars who managed to get close to some information about it, talks about an event that the Church has feared for centuries. One ancestral prophecy, written by unknown hands, which predicts a catastrophic event, capable of exposing all the secrets that the Vatican has tried to hide since its foundation. A prophecy that, if true, would show that the end is not as we were told, and that the Church itself is deeply involved in something that has never been revealed to the public. And the most frightening thing is that the few excerpts that were leaked from this supposed manuscript suggest that the Vatican always knew about the existence of this prophecy, and that, for this very reason, moved heaven and earth to ensure that no one else had access to this content. The order was clear: silence, destroy, eliminate any trace. But as you already know, what is done in the shadows always ends up coming to light. And now, with the advancement of investigations, with the courage of independent researchers, fragments of this secret have begun to circulate. And the burning question is, what is so dangerous about this book? What does he say that could bring the entire world to its knees in the face of a truth so heavy that not even the Vatican could bear it? There are those who say that this prophecy speaks of the fall of the Church itself, of a moment in history when everything that was built on lies and manipulations will begin to crumble, that the most hidden secrets, you banned books, as revelations about the true role of Mary Magdalene, about the apocryphal Gospels, and even about the destiny of humanity, will come to the surface all at once, in a domino effect that is impossible to stop. And what draws the most attention is the Vatican's fear of this happening, because they know that people's faith was built on fragile pillars, manipulated, rewritten over the centuries. And it only takes a single piece of this puzzle to fall for everything to come crashing down. They know that this hidden prophecy has the power to crumble what took them centuries to build. And I ask you, do you really believe that the Church, with all its power and influence, would go to the trouble of censoring, hiding, and erasing an entire book from history if it weren't extremely dangerous? No. Something big is about to be revealed, and when it does, nothing will be the same again. Therefore, I invite you to continue with me on this journey, because in the next video, I'm going to tell you everything I could gather about this damn book, the manuscript most feared by the Catholic Church, and show you why this prophecy was hidden for so long. If you've stayed with me this far, it's because, like me, you know that there is something much bigger hidden, and that the truth needs to be revealed. So now, I ask you, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet subscribed, because this helps me a lot to continue bringing this type of content, investigating the Vatican secrets, you banned books and everything the Church doesn't want you to know. And so, I know who really stayed until the end of this video. Comment below. I'm ready to know the truth. Write exactly like this in the comments, because when I read it, I will know that you are part of this community that seeks the truth together with me. And of course, if this video has kept you here, leave your like now, because this greatly strengthens the channel and makes YouTube deliver this content to more people who also need to hear all of this. And don't leave without clicking on the next video that is appearing here on the screen now. There I will reveal it to you, the most dangerous book ever censored by the Vatican, a manuscript so powerful that it was erased from history because it carries a hidden prophecy capable of shaking the world. I'll meet you there.